When we read the Bible, we need to be thinking about the context of the Bible back in Jesus' time. And there was definitely a lot of contextual things going on associated with hierarchy. There was a big hierarchy in the Judaism, and the hierarchy started with the high priest, Sadducee, Pharisee, and then went to the firstborn male, the patriarch of a family, then his firstborn male son, other males, and then you'd get to females that were Jews, children that were Jews, and from there you'd go to people that were Jewish that were sick or ill, or maybe they were born with a birth defect. Those people were considered kind of outside and lower in class from a hierarchical viewpoint with the Jews. Then below the Jews were Samaritans and then Gentiles. And then, of course, if you were a Samaritan or a Gentile that also had ailments, sickness, you were considered even lower from there. So those were the hierarchies that we need to be looking at as we're looking at the text of the Bible and seeing what was really going on and how was Jesus kind of cutting through that culture and that hierarchy of the time. Cleanliness also was associated with holiness, and cleanliness also related to whether you could be within the community. You were literally put outside of the community at times when you were sick, or let's say you even had your time of the month, you would be put outside the community, and you were not integrated within the regular society. There was also, you were not able to go into the synagogue unless you had cleanliness. And there was also, inside the synagogue, there's a Holy of Holies. That Holy of Holies place was only open to the high priest once a year. So it was not a place where people could even go and worship. Males and females also worship separately. And I want you guys to be thinking of the Holy of Holies as what they almost were beginning to think of, that's where God was, because they had not had a prophet in 400 years, and they were starting to think of God as only in the Holy of Holies and only accessible to the high priest when he went in once a year. So that's the context that's going on within the time of Jesus that I want you to be thinking about as you read the Word and as you study this, and start to look at how was Jesus impacting people? How was he anti-cultural? Also, the Bible was written in Greek and very impacted by the Greek culture. And the Greek culture had a lot of cultural things going on that were like worship of your body and sexuality and nudity and your, who you were, sportsmanship and so forth. So a lot of that kind of sounds a little familiar today, but that was the Greek culture that kind of backdropped going into the Judaism and then going into the Roman culture. And the Roman culture, as you know, is much more militaristic. There's a centurion. The centurion runs at least 100 soldiers, and there's a hierarchy that's very militaristic in the Roman culture. But the Romans did believe in leaving the Jews alone and letting them have their own culture, and the Romans have their own culture. But the Jews and Israel was under occupation by the Romans at the time of Jesus. So this is the culture I want you to be thinking about as you start to read and explore the questions and see how Jesus was working in action and not following the culture of the time, and how he cut through culture to show people that how they were equal, they were holy, they were valuable, how people all needed to be treated like they were a person that could be loved and adored, and how he started to be treating people differently than, let's say, the priests, the Sadducees, the Pharisees. How did he treat people differently? And what was he trying to do to the religious system of the time? And what was he doing relationally at the time? So I want you to be looking at that while we're reading the Gospels and I hope you enjoy this, and I'm looking forward to getting your feedback.